This morning, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our live stream system and where we started and how we ended up getting to where we are today. Once the pandemic hit and our church building closed, we began our worship services over Zoom. And that was continuing on. And then in August, we began discussions about replacing Zoom with some kind of a system for live streaming. We were currently doing the Zoom. We started out, the pastors were in their homes or in their office, and then they moved to doing the Zoom from different parts of the church auditorium. The first 5 weeks that we spent starting the end of August was to obtain and connect hardware and configure the software we're going to use, which was OBS. We had somebody on staff at the church, our AV person, had some experience with OBS. We had an existing PC that we had used for PowerPoint. We had an audio mixer. We had an old camcorder with a tripod. We borrowed another PC from the church office, a video camera, and another tripod. And the only thing we ended up purchasing to start with was a 4-port HDMI interface for the one PC and some HDMI cables to connect the cameras and the other PC. So a total of about $700 we spent. At the overlapped with the end of the 5-week period, we began meeting with the pastors and doing practice. And then we actually started live streaming worship 6 weeks after we had started work putting together the hardware. Overlapped with the starting that we knew we wanted a PTZ, point tilt zoom camera, and we looked for what we wanted and went to get council approval to spend the money for that. We had some configuration issues with OBS, which took us several weeks to resolve. And we ordered, installed, and configured the point tilt zoom camera. And on our 6th live stream, we began using the new camera. So that gives you kind of a timeline of where we were, how we got started. Our initial operations concept, the original concept, was to use the existing PC we had that we had used for PowerPoint with text and videos. And we were going to do that the same as Zoom. We're using the new PC that we borrowed. We had an existing PC that we configured for OBS. We decided, because of PC loading and the amount of work that the operator would have to do for controlling OBS and for doing PowerPoint, that we would use 2 people to do this. And what we had done when we were live before the pandemic hit, we would have, for the one service that was heavily PowerPoint, we would actually have 2 people, one that was doing audio and one that was running PowerPoint. So that was just like our normal way of doing business. We decided to use the pulpit and the altar for the live video locations. We had a 3rd person that was going to be an operator for the existing camcorder for close-up shots. And the borrowed camera was going to be a fixed wide-angle video shot of the chancel. And we would go to this camera while we were busy moving the other camera to set up shots. That was the original concept. As it ended up working out, the camcorder only needed to pan between the close-ups. The tilt and the zoom was the same for the pulpit and the altar. where we had put the camera. So instead of taking multiple seconds to set up a shot, it was like a 1 or 2 second, just move the camera. So what we did is we would do panning during videos that we were playing, or if we were going from one live shot directly to the next, we would bring up the PowerPoint without the live shot of the person. And then a second or two later, we would add that into the slide. So it turned out that we really didn't need the second camera. We were able to run pretty well with just one camera. This is a configuration diagram of what we have set up. Okay, we already had 2 projectors, so we ended up using them in the auditorium so that the pastors could see what was on the screen for PowerPoint, and they could also see what we were sending out live. We have the 2 cameras, and we replaced the borrowed camera with the point tilt zoom camera once we had that in place. We had an audio mixer which had an attached CD player. That's connected to our live stream PC by a UBS connection. Our mixer is digital, so it was very convenient to do that. The PowerPoint PC is connected to the live stream PC by HDMI, and the 2 cameras are connected with HDMI. Okay. If you have questions, just please stop me as I'm going.
Yeah, I have a question. You did have 2 pan tilt zoom cameras, and then you elected to use a single pan tilt zoom camera. Is that what you're saying?
No, we started out, we had a camcorder, which was 5, 6 years old, and we borrowed another camera. Neither were PTZ cameras. Okay. So we started out with that. We proved the concept of what we wanted to do. And within 6 weeks, we had purchased a single PTZ camera, which we then replaced the borrowed camera with. And we used the camcorder for just a fixed view of the sanctuary.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. This is what the setup looks like in our balcony. Close here is the PC that we use for PowerPoint. The other operator sits way over on the other side of the balcony, so they are socially distanced for COVID protection. And eventually, when we no longer have to do that, we will probably move all the equipment back to one location. Our cameras sit in here in between. I have some more close-ups. Okay. This is looking down into the auditorium. On the left is our PTZ camera mounted, and on the right is our camcorder. Okay. And it turns out we use the camcorder for one shot during the service, but we could do it all with the PTZ. But the camcorder's there for backup if we have any problems with PTZ, or if we want to put it on a tripod and do some kind of other shot with it. And then on the left side of the balcony, we have our digital mixer, and we have our PC, which runs OBS, and that's 2 displays on it. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about the PTZ camera that we bought. We went out looking, and we ended up with PTZ optics. We liked the PTZ optics camera because of the fact that the camera supports OBS in their interface, and they are very much tuned to OBS.
Okay, so I have another question, if I may, please.
Sure.
The OBS is a software platform. Is there also hardware that you had to use to interface the cameras with the PC that's running? And what is that hardware?
We used a Blackmagic 4-port HDMI board.
Okay.
Okay.
And then it brought a single video feed in, or did it give you 4 video feeds that you could use?
We actually bring in 3 video feeds with that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
We bring in our PTZ camera, we bring in the camcorder, and we bring in a video feed from the PowerPoint PC.
Okay.
Okay.
Bob, I asked a question, but I didn't have my audio on, so it's my turn.
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
had on your diagram where, and I did put this in the chat. Where is the HDMI 4-port hub in your diagram?
It's contained within. It's a board that fits into our live stream PC.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
we have an AV person on staff who has enough experience that he could take apart a PC and add hardware to it. So we were fortunate that way. So it's integrated right in the PC.
Do you have any specs on the computer that you're using for that live stream PC?
I do. I can look them up and get them to the end of the presentation. I will tell you that it's a 7-year-old computer.
Wow.
And it's an, am I saying it right? i5. Okay, and it's very good at running OBS, doing the streaming out to YouTube. If you put PowerPoint on it, we run at about 95%. So the PowerPoint works much better on another computer.
Are you sending the live stream to YouTube?
Yes.
And then people who want to view access the live stream via YouTube?
That's correct.
Okay.
And what we were doing before we put the system in place, we were using Zoom, and Zoom was streaming to YouTube.
Okay.
So in your humble opinion, where is the weakest link in that diagram?
Okay, probably the live stream PC.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a couple questions here related to that. What's the maximum length of the HDMI cables that you could use?
About the longest one we're using right now is, I think, a 50-foot cable.
Wow.
We don't need a 50-foot cable, but we needed the 50-foot cable when we had the camera down on the floor. And we just have a booster on that. And that was all purchased at Best Buy.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you can have hundreds of feet of cable if you want, but what it does is it converts it to Cat5, and then you have another receiver at the other end. So if you didn't have the, ability to have your equipment right by your cameras, which you do there, I mean, you have them all up in the balcony there.
Yeah.
So you have short runs, but if you wanted to put your equipment down on the floor or maybe in the front, you can still do it, but of course everything like that costs money, and you have to buy equipment to make it possible to run those types of distances.
Yeah. And I mean, we could get away with the longest cable we would really need right now is a 25-footer to go across the balcony from between the two PCs.
Do you have any timing issues between what you do when you do switch on OBS?
No. Okay. I'm going to talk about OBS a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. On the PTZ camera, we liked PCT optics. They provide good support. When we looked on the internet, it seemed like most houses of worship were using either PTZ optics or some other camera. I can't remember which. And we like PTZ optics because it would integrate with OBS. The camera has presets on it. And We can use a control window on the PC to get those presets, and also OBS will call the presets automatically for us.
Excuse me, the OBS that has control capability within the software to operate the PTZ optics cameras, is that what you
Yes.
said? Okay.
Yeah, and the time it takes the PTZ camera a second to move between presets, it's really fast. And what you could do is set an option that the camera will hold the current shot until the camera finishes moving. So you don't see any slurred images. It's just there and then it's somewhere else. Okay, and I was really surprised when the camera arrived as to how small it is. Okay, it's maybe 8 inches high at the most, and we have it. You have a front and back picture. The outputs, you can send video either over an internet connection. You can do it through HDMI. And we already had the HDMI board, so that's what we opted to do, or it has an SDI interface. Okay. This is what the control app looks like that we have on the screen of the PC. It'll support up to 8 cameras and gives you the ability to move the camera in any of the directions, to focus if you want to manually focus, and to zoom in and out. And then down below are direct access to 9 different presets. Okay. All right. Talking about OBS, which is Open Broadcaster Software Studio. Probably one of the big selling points for OBS was that it was free. Okay, it's freeware. It's open sourced and it's supported. So there are enhancements being made to it. There's forums that support it. If you've got problems, there's tons of information on the internet that you can look up. It supports both Microsoft and Apple. We use Microsoft. And the OBS Studio software is designed for capturing, compositing, encoding, and streaming video. So the video sources that we use, we have the 2 cameras, we have the PowerPoint PC, and then it also picks up from PC windows. One of the things that we do display at certain times on our live stream is the YouTube chat. So, and I'll show you where that comes in. So we're able to pick up the chat, have a chat window running on the OBS PC, and OBS is able to just go in, copy that window in, and we can use that in different composites. We have also used it with Zoom. And there's a couple of things. I'll tell you a little bit about Zoom later, why we went that way. OBS also allows you to put text on the screen that you can define into OBS, images like we have the church logo at one point, and it will send PTZ camera instructions. And you can do a lot of different things. We're using it only to call a preset. And it's kind of interesting how OBS does this, because OBS has the ability to send URL streams. So you can send a URL stream. And so we disguise the camera instructions as a URL stream that the OBS just sends out to the camera and causes the camera to interact and select the preset. Okay. The OBS control window itself, and I'll show you a picture of this in a moment, has a description of the scene that you're using, a preview display of what the next scene is going to look like, and the actual live stream display going out. It has audio meters and volume controls and mute controls on it. We do all of our audio through our mixer. So the only audio input coming into OBS is from our mixer. And then it has control buttons for OBS. So here we are. This is the control window here on the left display. And the right display is a copy of the live stream going out. So if we look closely at the window for a minute, this is the preview window. So this shows a live shot of the pulpit. It shows a PowerPoint slide. Right now, what is actually going out on the stream is a full picture of the pulpit itself. Down below is the selection of scenes that we have. And for the scene that is selected for preview, which is pulpit PowerPoint, it shows what the sources are for that screen. The audio mixer is right here, and the one at the bottom is from our mixer itself, and gives you a set of meters, volume control, and the ability to mute. There are controls over here. This is where we start streaming, or we could start recording, or we could do both at the same time. It has settings where we can set up things. And this little window in here is available for pop-ins. And one of the things OBS can do is pop in different kinds of windows there. And right now it has a mini PTZ control window in there.
And how do you get your preview window to your what you're previewing on the program? Is there
okay? There are two ways to do that. Okay, right here in the center is the transition button.
Okay.
And clicking on the transition button, I'm sorry, I changed slides. It moves over what was here over here, and this moves over to the left. And then you can select whatever the next scene is you want.
All right, thank you.
The way we use OBS, which makes it really easy, OBS has the ability to do hotkeys. So we have each of the scenes that we use in our live stream has a hotkey defined for it. And we have a hotkey for transition. We use the M key for move. So what you do is you use a single key on the keyboard to select the screen you want next. And then when you're ready for it, you hit the M key, it moves over, and then you can go about setting up your next scene. Okay. And the way we typically run is we use part of the screen for OBS, and then we have the control app here for the PTZ camera. We use it infrequently. Most of the time, OBS takes care of all of the PTZ pointing for us. Okay. I have a number of pictures that I took off YouTube, which shows what our live stream actually looks like when it goes out. But our worship live scene on a Sunday is composed of somewhere between 25 and 30 scenes, which are readings, prayers, music, sermons. We have 11 to 15 unique formats that we use for those different scenes. And we have 12 to 16 OBS scenes that we call with a hotkey for this. The video locations we use are the pulpit, the altar, and a wider view of the chancel. We also use a lot of recorded video. Right now, all of our music is recorded. Okay. We haven't gone to live music yet in the sanctuary due to COVID. We also sometimes have readings recorded. we have prayers sometimes recorded. And for instance, this Sunday, we're doing a Easter pageant for Palm Sunday, and that is all recorded. That was done by individual families, and somebody took it and edited it all together into a virtual pageant that we'll be showing. The other possibility we have is Zoom. And the reason we went to Zoom, we had a situation where our one pastor, somebody on his son's soccer team tested positive for COVID. So he ended up isolating for 2 weeks at home. And we have another transition pastor, and we have a seminary student, so they were able to do the service. But the Sunday that happened, the question came up is, well, what would have happened if they hadn't discovered until Monday? And then our whole pastoral staff would have been exposed. And you have to do the live streaming, you got to be in the sanctuary. So we did some experimenting and found out that we could use Zoom as another audio source input for OBS. And we've actually used this. We haven't used it for the situation of if we need to for, all the pastors being out, but we did. Our seminary student went home to Minnesota for the holidays, and she actually Zoomed into our live stream and did her parts of the service from Minneapolis, which was pretty cool.
How many participants do you have at a Sunday service other than the minister?
We have 3 pastors, or 2 pastors, seminary student. We have an assisting minister, and since we now have the PTZ camera, we have two technical people up in the balcony.
Okay,
one running
and
PowerPoint.
like when you're actually doing a screen of the service, is it just the minister that is the person talking and so forth? Do you have lay readers, or does the minister do the readings and so forth?
Okay, we have 2 pastors, we have a seminary student, and we have an assisting minister who all do different parts of the service.
Okay.
And what we do is, again, because of COVID situations, we switch locations between participants. So somebody will be doing a reading at the altar, and then the next person will be doing a prayer at the pulpit.
Okay. And you have the additional benefit that you could Zoom somebody in if you had to.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Let me walk you through what our typical service looks like. This is the first screen you would see, and this screen is used. Our service is at 10 o'clock. This screen is used from 9:45 to 9:55. Okay. It includes the YouTube chat. Okay, running here. So people signing on to YouTube that through the chat can greet each other. People can provide information for prayer requests and so forth. And we have a set of scrolling announcement slides that are shown. Okay. And we have recorded music playing in the background. My opinion is you don't want to bring up something and not have sound with it, because typical people will sit there and think something's wrong, so they keep turning up their volume. Then when you finally have sound, they get blasted out. So we play, we have a worship band. They've produced a couple of CDs, so we just use their CDs as background music. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Certainly.
I am the video producer over at New Hanover, and when we have been going live on YouTube, we've not been able to do that. We haven't been able to use a chat because we have to claim that it's for children. Have you gotten around that somehow? Or maybe you don't know that.
I have a similar concern because you have one chat at the bottom there that might be an HDM, a HIPAA concern, like the fact that the person's in the hospital. I'm not sure that should be public information.
Okay. Nobody's brought this up. That's something I better go check.
Yeah, you want to look into the YouTube stuff just to make sure, because about a year ago there was a big thing about the children, and I would assume you would want to have children watching your service. So
Right.
You want to be able to check that. And I know that our web designer also looked into that, and we've not been able to use the chat on YouTube. However, we've been able to use the chat on Facebook.
Okay. Interesting.
I have a question about the chat.
Yeah.
So most people are watching your live stream directly on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess, does it really, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And if you go full screen on YouTube, if you're not full screen on YouTube, the chat is already on your right-hand side. If you go full screen, then your chat is below the full screen. So the chat is always there. We just bring it up on the screen at the beginning.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering what that added rather than just having people look at the YouTube chat stream.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, it brings the chat up for some of our congregants who are not at all tech savvy, you know, who getting into YouTube to watch it was a challenge to start with. Okay. All right. At 9:55, the scrolling announcement slides are replaced with a wide view of our chancel with our pastor, our transition pastor, and our seminary student across the front. Okay. And I'm not sure if you can really tell looking at this picture, but at the moment, two of them are looking at their phones. The reason they're looking at their phones is they have the chat running on their phones. So they will actually greet people that say hello in the chat. So it's kind of a greeting. And, you know, if you were live in the sanctuary when you came in, somebody would be there shaking your hand and welcoming you. So that's kind of a way we do that. Okay, then the actual service starts at 10 o'clock. The pastor will walk through the announcement slides, highlighting anything that he really wants to announce, you know, once it's important. And what we have is a full screen PowerPoint and a small picture of the pastor on the right-hand side. So we use 3 different formats of PowerPoint, which I'll show you as we go through here. Okay. This is our assisting minister doing the greeting and prayer of the day. And in this case, we use about 70% of the PowerPoint screen, and then we cover the rest of it and the extra on the side with the full picture of somebody at the pulpit or at the altar. I think I have one here. This is a reading being done from in front of the altar.
This brings up the question, how do you make the adjustment of sliding the PowerPoint presentation down to a smaller size to allow the overlay of the assistant minister, for example?
Well, actually, the PowerPoint is full size. So the PowerPoint comes over to about here. Okay. You see where my cursor is? But there's nothing on this part of the PowerPoint. When we make the PowerPoint, we restrict it to only be about 70% width. When we go back to in-person worship, we're planning to continue live streaming. So what we will do is in the 30% that's not showing here, we're just going to put some kind of an image on, because we had typically done that with our PowerPoints anyway.
Will that image be embedded in the PowerPoint itself, or will it be an overlay?
No, it'll be embedded in the PowerPoint itself. Okay. This is a widescreen from the pulpit, and this is the pastor doing his sermon. We do a widescreen of doing communion, okay, at the altar. Okay. This is passing of the peace. And during passing of the peace, we bring the chat back up on the screen for the congregants to pass the peace to each other. And down here at the bottom of the slide, this text is generated by OBS for us. And down here where Changed Lives, that's an image that we actually put into OBS. Okay, we use our music through videos, and here we're doing, at this point, we're going through the offering. So we have passing of the peace, the pastor says a few words about the offering, and then we have a musical piece during the offering. And so here we have a video that's running in PowerPoint, and we have the chat that continues to run.
Is that video a live image that's going on in real time?
It's a live, it's recorded.
All right, so you recorded somebody playing.
Recorded, but it is a video, so it's kind of neat. You can actually watch your hands playing.
Okay.
And we do videos in a variety of different formats.
Oh yeah, you said that I'm sorry, you said that the video of all the music was pre-recorded.
Yeah.
So that's just one of the pre-recorded, and then you have the, okay, understood, thank you.
Yeah. This is our worship band, and they actually record Tuesday nights in the sanctuary. So they make their videos there, and they use an Adobe product to actually put down on the bottom of the video the words to the song that they're doing. Okay. And this is our third PowerPoint format, which is a centered point format. So the PowerPoint is centered on the screen. And we use that. Here's our organist. This was pre-recorded, her playing in the organ. Here we have a couple of choir members that pre-recorded in the sanctuary. And again, in this case, we're actually using PowerPoint itself to put the lyrics up on the screen.
Bob, are you playing the videos through PowerPoint?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that all comes from the PowerPoint PC. The whole service is put together as one PowerPoint. So and then actually we copy the announcement slides out into a separate PowerPoint that we play at the beginning because it's scrolling. And then when the pastors begin their greeting of the congregation, we take down that PowerPoint, bring the other PowerPoint up for the service, and then just run through it. Okay.
Bob, in your opinion, my experience with PowerPoint is the compression on the images and so forth was pretty severe. So do you see a noticeable change by switching from the PTZ camera quality to anything in PowerPoint?
You do see some degradation. Okay. We have the best thing I could do, we have one member of our congregation that must have like an 8-foot diagonal TV. And we kept getting complaints about the quality of the video when we first started. And then when we went to the PTZ camera, the complaints stopped. And we've never given us any complaints about the videos. So, I mean, at some point when COVID will allow us, we would like to go back to doing a lot of these things live in the sanctuary. Okay. And then we do sometimes just use one which has just an audio file for music, and they put the words on the screen. At the end of the service, the pastors do their goodbye to the congregation. And it's kind of like if you're walking out the door of the sanctuary and somebody's there shaking your hand, they're saying goodbye. So this is maybe like 30 seconds. And then we go to an image of the sanctuary itself, and we're using the camcorder for this. We could do it with the PTZ camera, but we got the camcorder there, so we use it. And this image is on for the length of one song that we play from the CD player. And actually see some people moving around. The assisting minister is going over to put out the candles. So that's what our typical live stream looks like. And the way we actually control our live stream is that we use something called a worship script, which is generated weekly and customized for the service. And I'll show you an example in a moment, but it tells you what the worship element is, who's doing the worship element, where it's being done from. So those are for the people that are actually live in the sanctuary. We have the OBS scene, the OBS hotkey to use, and what the audio input is for the mixer. And that's for our studio operator. And then we have for our PowerPoint operator, it tells you what the PowerPoint slides are for that worship element. And then we have some additional information in there, which includes the PTZ camera preset, although we don't typically need that. So this is what one of our worship scripts looks like. Okay, and there's the, if we start out, for instance, line 5 is the call to worship. It's being done at the altar. Pastor G is doing it. It's going to be an altar PowerPoint. The hotkey to pull up that scene is a B. It's using mic 16, slide 9, and the PTZ preset is 4. So this tells everybody what's going on every step of the way. This is just done in Microsoft Word. And we have a couple of, we don't do communion every Sunday. We do it the first and third Sundays typically. So we have 2 different script formats or copies of scripts. And then you go through after the PowerPoint slides together, we just customize it with who's doing it, where it's being done from, what the slide numbers are. And we found this very useful because you can sit there and you can go right down the line. If you're the OBS operator, you know what the next scene is. So as soon as you have a scene out on the live stream, you start setting up your next scene, select the hotkey, and so forth. One of the things that we have done is, because the fact that we use different PowerPoint slide formats, we have a full PowerPoint, we have the 70% PowerPoint left justified. We have the centered PowerPoint. So what we do is, when we change the PowerPoint format in the PowerPoint slide deck, we have a blank slide that's timed for 1 second between there. And all that happens is the OBS operator, has the next scene ready to go, and he doesn't hit the transition button until he sees the white slide. As soon as he sees the white, he hits the transition button, and it all blends very nicely on the screen.
As everything is scripted out, the question comes to mind, what's the learning curve for OBS? How much training might be involved? And the follow-up is, do you have any problem getting volunteers?
Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about our staff. We, our AV guy, normally took care of audio for our 3 worship services. So now he is doing audio and the OBS work. Okay, he's paid, so he's there every Sunday. If he takes a Sunday off for some reason, I can fill in. We're gonna begin shortly searching for somebody else in the congregation that we can train, so that, in the event that somebody's sick and somebody's away, we still have a 3rd person for backup. But right now we have 2 OBS. We have 5 people that are trained on PowerPoint. So we rotate through, and you do PowerPoint about once a month. And the problem with OBS, actually running the OBS during the service, is very easy. Okay, there's quite a few steps involved in getting streaming started. Okay, because we have to bring up the YouTube, we have to pop the chat out, we have to bring in the URL for the chat into OBS, we have to get the stream ready to go, we have to copy the stream key into OBS, we have to start the stream in OBS, then we have to start it in YouTube. We have a complete set of written procedures for somebody to walk through. But, if anything ever goes wrong, you need a little bit of familiarity with OBS to be able to do it. But the actual running of it during the service is pretty simple. The biggest problem is if you get distracted and, you miss a cue. And our AV guy had a little bit of experience with OBS. I mean, he knew what it was, and he had seen it used, and he might have tried it once or twice. Okay. I came in not even knowing what OBS stood for, and found a wealth of videos on YouTube on how to use OBS. And, through learning, I was able to come to the point where I'm very comfortable with OBS. And I ended up setting up all of the scenes for OBS.
Is it fair to ask you how much you pay your audio person?
I don't know.
You don't know if it's by the hour or a day or
It is by the hour.
by the hour? Okay.
Okay. But I don't know how much he gets paid an hour. Okay.
Is that same person coming into church to record the audio portions or the video portions when you have recorded music?
Most of the well, for instance, the worship band recordings are done on a laptop. Okay, and then the two people in the worship band have their own studios at home. So they record the audio separately, they record the video on a laptop, and they go home and mix it and put the lyrics on it. And we get delivered a finished product. Most of the rest of the music usually falls mainly into two categories. Either our organist choir director will do the recording using her phone, or we will get videos that people have recorded at home, typically using their phone. And occasionally, we actually will do OBS recording with OBS. We have 8 members of our choir are coming in Saturday morning, and we're going to record music for a Tenebrae service Wednesday or Friday night, and a couple of other hymns. So that will be done with the PTZ camera and using OBS to record. Talk about OBS scenes for a moment. We actually started our live stream out with about 10 OBS scenes defined, and we're up somewhere around 30 now. Okay. And one of the things that I found out early about OBS that was really good was that you could, within a definition of a scene, you could use another scene. So our OBS scenes are built in layers. We have some foundation scenes, and then we use that scene and add to it. And when you build an OBS, you're doing layers. So you have the top layer of video followed by the next layer down, and whatever the top layer doesn't cover, the layer below it shows through, and so forth. And we added 11 different scenes when we got the PTZ camera, so that when we selected a scene, it would automatically point the camera. We also documented procedures for startup, for PowerPoint operation, for Zoom startup, and for recording. So, and by documenting, it's been easier to get people to help because it's all written down for them. Okay. Just an interesting thing. This is how we did our initial scene design. Okay, we did it in PowerPoint because of the graphics capability, and we just created what we thought the scenes would look like and got buy off on those, and then actually went and defined the scenes in OBS. These are blessings that have come to us, or we think will come to us from the live streaming. Okay, we've got the ability to now reach remote worshipers that are unable to physically come to the building, those that are traveling, and even those that live out of the area. We have a couple of families that have moved, and they are now joining us on live stream for worship. We can record worship services, and we've done this twice now for weather emergencies. So we've recorded the service ahead of time on Saturday and then made it available Sunday morning. We've got an archive now of our worship services. We can reuse music and so forth. And I already talked about Zoom, that we, one of the things too that Zoom will allow us to do is use remote guest speakers as part of our service. When we get back to in-person worship with live streaming, we expect the live streaming to continue when we return to in-person worship. And there are some adjustments that we're going to need to make. The format of the PowerPoint slides needs to change a little bit. Right now, the font is too small for in-person worship. So we're going to have to beef up the font size and move stuff to additional screens. We're also going to add a microphone to pick up congregational sounds, such as, Lord be with you, and then there's a dead silence. So that'll make the remote worshipers, I think, feel more connected. And we're going to change. We had a video hardware switch that we used for PowerPoint in the beginning in our worship before we were doing live streaming, so that when we were in in-person worship, that would allow the PowerPoint operator to blank the screen or freeze it while he was adjusting PowerPoint. Right now, we don't have that in the configuration. We're going to have to put that back in. Okay. And the in-person worship benefits we see from live streaming would be live video on the sanctuary screens. We're doing a little of that for the children's sermon, but we can do much better quality now because of the PTC camera. And we'll have access to Zoom on the sanctuary screens through this. And this last page is just a list I make to things that you need to consider, when you're going to put together live streaming. Where do you want the live stream taken from? What the lighting is at the locations. And we're fortunate that our sanctuary is pretty light during the day. We've done some services at nighttime, and lighting's a little bit more tricky then. Okay, and how many cameras do you need? Okay, what equipment do you currently have that you might be able to use? And if you don't have a control center, where would you put one? If you do, is it going to be large enough to hold the equipment that you need? Okay. So, any other questions I can answer for you? Okay. Great.
Well, thank you, Bob. That's an extremely thorough presentation, and it's really helpful to see the whole thought process behind what you've been doing. The other question that you didn't anticipate that I had was just a really technical point. Is there a way to do, if you have just one audio stream, is there any way to make that easy way to put it in all the streams, or do you have to scenes, or do you have to automatically add it to each scene?
Oh, that's very interesting, because OBS allows you to add audio to each scene, but certain audio sources are universal and you can't get rid of them. So, and our input from our mixer is a universal source. However, it got defined in OBS. So it's there for every scene.
Nice.
Okay, one of the places we got in trouble is that our Black Magic device that interfaces our HDMIs, okay, that assumes that there's audio coming in on each HDMI. And so OBS brings up the audio on each HDMI. And the two cameras that we had in the beginning, we couldn't shut the audio off at the camera, which was interesting. We could shut it off at the PowerPoint PC. So we had it muted, and we were getting somewhat garbled audio when we were showing one of the cameras on the screen. And it turned out that even though we muted the source in OBS, it was still leaking. And it turned out, it took us about 3 weeks to find it. OBS has some advanced audio settings, and there was an audio setting in there that I found that would allow you to block a source completely. And once we did that, the audio has been great. Okay.
Thank you. So, any other questions?
I have one quick question. When you're showing pre-recorded video of music, are you showing the copyright with each individual clip, or do you just show like one copyright screen at the end, or how do you handle in the copyright?
We have one copyright screen at the end.
Okay.
Have you gotten copyright strikes even though you have that?
Not aware of any problems we've had with copyrights.
Good. So any other questions for Bob?
I put one in the chat regarding what's the name of the black magic device that you're using. I think it's the first time I heard you use that term, but I'm not surprised because it comes up frequently in these discussions.
I will have to get back to you with that.
They're a major player in video work today, and they make some excellent products. So it is probably a key part of your operation there to knowing what that is.
Yeah, I just know it's black magic, and it's a 4-port HDMI board.
Okay.
I can see, I can find out some more details about that, I think. Just come back with that information next week. Is that all right?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Send it, Bob.
Yeah, because I don't think we threw the box out. So it should still be under the sound desk somewhere.
Okay, thanks. And I know Blackmagic also makes an external device that will take 4 HDMI inputs and audio inputs and give you one camera input to the to OBS, which is both good and bad. It takes processing off of your computer, but it's 2 places you have to switch.
Yeah. And with this, OBS just, we bring up a scene and OBS selects the right video sources for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really quite a fascinating program for free.
Yes.
Any other live stream questions? If not, there's one in the chat which asks, how is everyone reaching members who don't have internet or smartphones? Bob, have you looked at that at Upper Dublin?
I have not been involved with that. I don't know if anyone has or not.
Do you know if have been, complaints from people that they can't access?
Okay, I'll see if I can find out this week.
Great, thank you. How about everybody else? What's your experience with folks who don't necessarily have smartphones or the internet?
Our home
We send
Eucharist,
out, we send out a.
our home Eucharistic ministers are calling all the people who don't have internet access every week on a rotating basis. So they're contacted every week. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, we send out a Bible study little page that's actually made for homebound people every week. And we have Stephen Ministries doing the same, just really going out of their way to contact everybody more often during this pandemic. And a couple times we've actually invited people, well, actually for the annual meeting, we had people in the parish hall spaced far apart with the annual meeting on a screen so that those members could be included. They had masks and all that, but just a very few people in there.
In addition to in addition to Stephen's ministry, St. Andrew's never stopped sending the copy of the sermon and a copy of the bulletin to all our shut-ins.
Nice. Has anyone experimented with trying to send the audio of your service to like a conference call that people could call into on a regular phone?
No, is that possible? I don't even know how to do that.
You know, Facebook had that available for a while. A number of our people were doing that, and then I think Facebook stopped.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I think we had that same problem at St. John's.
So what we've done is that we bought a number of iPads, but of course then folks need the internet, right?
Yeah.
So they're able to get on YouTube at home, but that you know, that doesn't answer the question entirely, because the question was those who didn't have internet, you know, as well as smart devices.
I've just started to do recordings on an Amazon Fire to start a library for the church. And I just wondered if anybody else had any ideas.
I would think there's, you know, recordings that, again, it's hard to get recordings to people who don't have the internet these days, but they might have other uses too. I know some folks have delivered recordings like to nursing homes, and they've been able to play them on their internal systems.
We do have like people that are in nursing homes. Some of the activities directors of nursing homes have contacted me, and they put it up on their television. A lot of you can ask assisting living facilities to do that for your members.
Bob, with your presentation, it sounds like that not only the pastors, but the whole worship team has to be really working together to get this planned out ahead of time, which also gives you the opportunity to react ahead of time if you need to.
Yeah, the pastors, along with the person that puts together the PowerPoint, have a review meeting on Wednesday afternoon to do a final okay of the PowerPoint. And then I have access to it Wednesday night, and I send out the worship scripts by Thursday morning to the participants in the service. And one of our PowerPoint persons that's going to actually load the PowerPoint will pick it up at that point and do any additions to the videos that need words added to them. And then that gets loaded Saturday sometime.
Excellent. Have you thought at all of having folks at home record readings on their phones? And
yes, we've done that.
Good.
Okay, we've done readings, we've done prayers. And we were doing probably more of that when we were Zooming. Because I guess it was a new thing when we first started and people wanted to do it, and then it just kind of tapered off.
Well, yeah, there's pandemic fatigue comes in all forms.
Yeah. Next week's going to be interesting though, because we have not only the Sunday service for Easter Sunday, but we have a Thursday and Friday night services to be live streamed.
Well, blessings for Holy Week, and we will see you on the other side of Easter. Take care, everybody.
Bye.